Takulandirani ku AMTV Malawi kuchimake kwa nkhani zenizeni. Ngati nkhani imeneyo kuno kulibe, dziwani kuti nkhani imeneyo ndi yabodza.
I would like those who can take off the jackets, you're free for now because it's increasingly becoming hot. Others can endure. Those who can't, we don't want issues. So those who can take off the jackets, the chair for today has granted you because the air cons are not working. And it's not going to be right. But those who know that their shade is just by the collar and whatnot, please remain intact as you are. But otherwise, I wish you well as you become confident in that. I see a hand from Lilongwe Chirobwe. What is it, Lilongwe Chirobwe?
Yes. The chair, I would like to mention the names of the people who attended the vision meeting that was held on 17th November 2025. You know, Chair, Malawians out there are eager to know. They are listening, they are watching. Let's tell Malawians what they have to know. Malawi is in an age where they should know each and everything. We no longer have to live in the dark. It's time Malawi should always rise. Let's be open in whatever we do. Let's be transparent. Let's not hide things which cannot be hidden. Let's be open. So I now announce the names of the people. Those who attended their positions and those who gave apologies. Idris Amwale, chairperson, was present. Yona Piri, member, was present. Brazil Mpepo, member, was present. Chikond Piri, member, sent apologies. Boyd Hamera, secretariat, was present. Charity Gambatula, secretariat, was present. Natasha Nhoma, secretariat, was present. Emmanuel Chisale, EMG advisory, was present. Simplex Banari, EMG advisory, was present. Gabriel Chembezi, GD Liwimbi and partners, was present. George Liwimbi, GD Liwimbi and partners, was present. Mr. Chair, these are the names that were present. Going forward, I would also like to ask, there was this other lady to the right who was sent on forced leave. I have a question or two to ask her. Where is she? Because I don't think she sent any apologies that she might not be present.
Honourable member, you may paint the question up until she walks in because we've been in this room for some time. So let's respect when she walks in, we can take that one. Is that okay with you?
Yeah. That's okay. I'll still remember. I'll come back to you because I have some questions to ask her. At this point, let me give a chance to others to go on, and I'll come back with some more questions concerning the procurement of it all. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand from Lilongwe Chiwamba, another hand from Chilazulu Nyungwe, but Lilongwe Chirobwe, you had a question to counsel. Please proceed.
Yes. Through your chair, I would like to ask, we hear you were sent on forced leave. Can you tell this committee what happened? What were circumstances leading to that? What was the reason? What were the reasons, maybe, if I may ask? Because this might be a hint to some of the things that I would like to ask. And another question is on the...
Maybe Lilongwe Chirobwe. Since you said it's just a hint on other questions that you want to ask, can I give you space? Council, you may respond. Then we'll go back to Lilongwe Chirobwe. Over to you, Council.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Lilongwe Chirobwe. Is that correct? Yes. As to the issue pertaining to my administrative leave, it is true I've been put on leave as of 12 January 2026. I do have the letter. This was communicated by way of a letter. As it stands now, these are just allegations. They have not called me to present myself and defend myself to answer to these allegations. I'll be comfortable if I can share you the letter itself tomorrow, but I cannot answer to the reasons right now because these are just allegations and the issue has not been concluded. So I'll not be comfortable explaining the whole situation on this forum. Thank you.
Mulanje Southeast, what has gone out of order?
Chairperson, through you, I just wanted this committee to rest assured. And I wanted to find out from the lady who just represented if her presence in this honorable committee has been sanctioned. Thank you, Chairperson.
Through you, Chair, Honorable.
Before you take that, Council, as Parliament, we had sent a communication. She has not been fired. She's still working. She's in fact on leave. Well, she's on leave. She has been called to duty, national duty. So, Parliament, as Public Accounts Committee, has powers to summon anyone. She is one of the anyone's, and we are within the powers of Parliament to summon. So she's appealing because she's a learned counsel, and she's someone who knows the Constitution. And she is aware that Malawi has a Constitution, and that Constitution gives Parliament the powers to provide oversight. Now she's here because Mulanje Southeast, she's a learned lawyer. As a learned person, she's just respecting her role. So I can assure you that Parliament summoned her. So you're good to go on that one. Thank you so much, Mulanje South. I see you raising a hand, Mulanje Southeast.
Chair, not to reflect on the chairman. I was a little surprised whether as a committee we specifically asked for her. Not that there's an issue with her presence, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We actually specified because these are issues bordering around the law. So we felt it is appropriate that somebody who is qualified to do the same must appear. So as Parliament, we summoned her and the rest of the team members who are here, including the procurement manager, because it revolves around procurement. So be at peace. Your Parliament, which you belong to, are summoned. Thank you so much, Mulanje Southeast. Other members, I saw Chilazulu, Nyungwe, Zomba North, Zomba City North, and the last one I see there's Lilongwe East, and our senior Katape Central. In that order, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. First of all, let me start by appreciating the elaborate presentation and the bravery that the ladies have shown today. Rest assured that the people of Chilazo and Nyongwe are behind you, and if you need security, we got you. Chair, first, before we, as we're anticipating to meet the new board, I'd like to know, there was a mention of 2 people who were nominated by the OPC, but I think for them to be licensed, there was some sort of force or pressure for them to join the new board. Is it possible that the ladies kindly provide the names of those 2 board members? And secondly, throughout the days that we've been here, we've been hearing a lot about use of this, use of investments that. These guys even came as far as forcing themselves or forcing the fund to sell their hotel, which had so many debts and things like that. Chair, I think that these guys acted out of order. It's like they're forcing to sell at gunpoint, rather. So is it possible that use of investments appear to this honorable committee? We need to hear from them. We need Malawians actually want to hear what motivated them to act in this manner. With that, Chair, I submit. Thank you.
Point of order, Chair.
Honour members, can we allow us to conclude? Those I had identified, this Zomba. Point of order from Lilongwe Chiwamba.
Thank you, Chair. Let me remind you that before you mention me to ask a question, but secondly, you recognize the other members. So I just want to ask you if you can allow me to ask a question, then you can proceed.
Honourable member, before we go to Zomba City North, my dear brother from Lilongwe Chiwamba, there's no reason for me to forget you. You know why. Proceed, Lilongwe Chiwamba.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me remind you again that I represent people of Lilongwe Chiwamba. Now, Chair, through you, I'd like to ask Control Officer to confirm that the EMJ Public Accounts, you was engaged to conduct evaluation after the board had already passed the resolutions to invest. Secondly, Chair, I want also to ask, was this valuation reviewed by independent valuation experts? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Lilongwe Chiwamba. Now, Zomba City North.
Chair, through you, I wanted to find out from the Fund Secretariat. When the Procurement Officer was submitting his statement to this committee, he mentioned that the letter that he got was that there should be 3 service providers. And when they had advertised, they had 2 service providers. And they continued the process of evaluation with the 2 providers that they had, service providers. I wanted to find out what is the best practice in that field. Do you proceed when the threshold is not met? Number 2, Honorable Chairperson, is that the terms of reference were that they should work within 10 days. And indeed, the service provider seems to be very efficient. He managed to produce the report within 12 hours. But when we see the previous service providers that were engaged, they took so much time to prepare the data that this service provider, EMJ, based on in updating to find the price that the hotel was pitched at, comparing the price that this service provider, the latter one, got 26,980,000, and that of previous service providers who had gathered so much data cannot match. I wanted to find out from the procurement officer, did you not yourself find this to be a fraud, sort of? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Katabe Central.
Thank you, my chairperson. Honorable Chair, I want to take you backwards a little bit. You remember the civil society was up in arms against Parliament for the 5 billion CDF allocated to every constituency for effective development in our rural areas, and that MPs do offer effective oversight. The civil society was up in arms fighting MPs. Where is civil society today, where the public pensions trust has been defrauded of 128 billion? Where is the civil society today? Honorable Chair, earlier I had asked the Secretariat to define fraud against corruption. Why I asked that question, Honorable Chair, is because the ACB director appeared before this committee and he cleared the trust of corruption allegations. And then earlier I defined corruption in simple terms as an act of giving and receiving. In this case, the action of giving and receiving cannot be detected. But I want the Secretary to answer yes or no. In simple terms, can she agree that the pensions trust fund has been defrauded? Defrauded why? Because an item worth 30 billion valued by FDH, 47 billion against another valuer, and 128 billion has been paid. Is there no element of fraud in this case? I want a yes or no answer. Thank you, Chair.
I think on the CDF one, honorable member, and against the civil society, I want to refresh you that several civil societies wrote to Parliament requesting Parliament, specifically Public Accounts Committee, to set up an inquiry on this. You may be refreshed that one of which you're looking at the National Anti-Corruption Alliance. They wrote to Parliament. You're looking at the National Advocacy Platform. They wrote to us. You may National Youth National Youth Council? Youth and Society. Kind of yes. Yes wrote, and the director, Mr. Kajoloweka, he's always online checking and giving updates. He's one of the people who are doing that. So to reflect that civil societies didn't show interest on this, I would like to rule you out of order, Honorable Member for Nkata Bay Central. Controlling officer or colleagues from the fund, you may proceed. There's a question, the other one was to do with fraud. You said whether the account was defrauded on a yes or no. At this stage, I would like to guide that since there were a dubious sale agreement, all those things happen. If in the event that there were all those things, and you also responded that you were not even aware. So to attempt that one may actually undermine your integrity. You have, in my view, ably represented the integrity of our secretariat, so we must proceed in that way. You may take the rest. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and the committee. I think the question from Zomba City North on best practices, I think this was directed to procurement. And the terms of reference on a job done for 10 days, done in 2 days, and whether the procurement detected some fraud, I think he will also respond as they were presented to him. Thank you.
Honour members, I think it's getting late, and this is somewhere around 7:15. We are yet to do with the new board, okay? But we are here. Honourable member, I need to also be seen to start providing security. So I really need honour members to understand me on that one. I may not come out that clear because of good information and everything. They may want to retire and relax. But colleagues from our Secretariat for Pension Fund, would like to appreciate the efforts that you've given to this inquiry, your contributions. But before anything, you may proceed to give us your closing remarks. Secretariat, please.
Before we close, Chair, if possible, the LSM would like to make a submission on minutes, on signing of resolutions, and the process.
Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. My colleague here had made a presentation on how the signing of resolutions actually does happen. It is important to note that I was recruited by the fund in 2022, and my colleague here correctly stated that I do perform secretariat duties from time to time. I referred to the trust deed on clause 15.8. No, sorry, on 15.5, which states that the board may appoint the secretary to the board who shall have functions as the board deems fit. So when it comes to the signing of the resolutions, on 15.10, it states that the fund secretary shall keep minutes of all meetings of the board and the exercise of the board of all powers and discretions vested in them, and the passing of the resolutions shall be recorded in such minutes. The document certified by the chairperson of the board and the secretary of the board to be a true copy of the resolution of the board shall be sufficient evidence. So going back to the point that I was recruited in 2022, the practice that was in place was that the resolutions assigned by the board chairperson and the vice chairperson to ensure equal representation of member representatives and employee representatives. Up until now, this practice has not been revoked. It can only be done so by way of a resolution passed by the board. In the event that the board chair is not present, an acting chairperson who presides over the meeting is appointed and so signs the minutes. When the vice chairperson is not in attendance, the chairperson of the committee, whereby the issues produced in the board referred to, is the one who signs. So to confirm that the resolution that is floating around, which was signed by the board chair, Mr. James Daire, and Boyd Hamera, chairperson of the investment committee. This was done so because at the time that the resolutions was passed, we had our vice chairperson, Mr. Hakije, retire from serving on the board. Therefore, because the matter in question was in relation to an investment committee decision, it was signed by the chairperson of the investment committee. I just wanted to make that clear as to why those were the signatories of that resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council, for that. And take note that as your parliament, we've taken note. I think at the comfort that you've given us, allow us to wind up. You may discuss amongst yourselves who's going to give us our closing remarks. Then we wind up from this side. Over to you.
Chair, before we conclude, there were two outstanding questions that were asked by Banta Chilomoni. Is it fine? Okay, thank you. They have said fine. I would like to just make a point before I make a conclusion. I think the question that were being asked on the sale agreement was you made a resolution on that, but just to note that we've reported here that the fund has asset investment managers, administrator and custodian. So these people are the ones who were dedicated, who segregated duties of handling fund movement. So as we reported, we can only report on the reports that we have on the disinvestments that were done, but on details of fund movement, asset managers, our administrator, and the custodian can give you more information on the whole process, on how it transpired. So in closing from our side, we would like to thank you for giving us an opportunity to come and present the events according to the Secretariat. We are thankful of the audience and the questions that were posed to us, and we hope that the responses that were given would aid you in the objective that you have in setting up this Commission of Inquiry. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, colleagues from Secretariat. On behalf of Parliament of Malawi, specifically Public Accounts Committee, would like to appreciate your love for this nation. You've shown the best out of your submissions, and I would like to assure you that your Parliament is within a phone call, because your Parliament is a call away. Anything that you feel is not okay, you can raise a flag. You have contacts for colleagues in our Secretariat. You can raise anything officially through Secretariat. That said, we wish you well, and as Parliament, we're just looking forward to see you succeed to the greater heights. We thank you so much for your coming, and we value all the submissions that you've made to this inquiry. You may leave at your pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Controlling Officer and your team, you may take your seat. Controlling Officer and all honor members, I would like to welcome you to the deliberations, and be assured that we've already prayed, because we've been here since 8 a.m. On the onset, allow me to extend my apology on behalf of the committee, Public Accounts Committee, because an invitation was sent that you're supposed to appear at 2. But because of the engagements that we've had, we're engaging the odd board, then Secretariat, and the information that we were getting was just too much. To that effect, we felt there was a need for us to get all conclusive evidence, which is going to inform the discussions as well as the conclusion of the inquiry. So kindly accept our apology for keeping you waiting, but we were here, we're not outside. So I'd like to welcome you. Honorable members, can I have your order from that end? Controlling Officer, we'll proceed in this way. We'll allow members of Parliament to introduce themselves. Thereafter, Secretariat will introduce the members. Then we'll have introductions from media. So is the case with you and the team that has accompanied you. Controlling Officer, I want to put it on record that all our discussions are live, and we expect that you're going to maneuver knowing that everything that you're saying, a lot of people are watching and are listening. So I just wanted to put that on record so that you don't feel like somebody has ambushed the fund. At the same time, before we start the engagement, we will ask Secretariat to administer an oath. So everyone who has accompanied you is going to take an oath. because as we proceed, we may ask anyone to give a comment because they form part of those who are making decisions. So we will require of you that you can give space to anyone. But it is a standard practice at Parliament that before you speak, you're supposed to take an oath. So we'll proceed in that way. Other members, I would like to thank you so much because you're still here. And the practice, normally you're supposed to have a proper dress code for Parliament. But I would like to put it on record that for today, as a chairperson, since this room is hot, the aircon is not working, I directed that members can take off the jackets. I would like to send the same invitation since you've been here. Those who feel that are not comfortable in this jacket for today, because of the nature of this environment, I would like to extend that you can take off a jacket, but if you're comfortable, we're good to proceed. Honour members, we'll start from my far right. Can you introduce yourselves?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I am Gerard Kapisani Piri, representing the people of Salima Central. Thank you.
Chair, through you, my name is Arini Mambala, Member of Parliament for Balaka Mulunguzi. Thank you.
Chair, I am Young Piri, representing the people of Lilongwe East. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. I think it's evening now. Good evening, Chair.
In fact, it's evening. This is exactly 7:38 p.m. Somebody said good night. Proceed, Chitipa Central.
Yeah, good evening, Chair. My name is Fisiani Banet Nyondo. I represent the good people of Chitipa Central constituency. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, for the people of Mulanje Southeast, I am Buka Matemvo. Thank you.
Evening, Chair. My name is Samuel Bokus, representing the people of Machinga Central.
Evening, Chair. My name is Macpherson Mwaindalama. I represent the people of Chiladzulu Nyungwi. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, my name is Geoffrey Onsewa, MP for Chikwawa North. Thank you.
Chair, my name is Winston Ganabanjira, Member of Parliament for Lilongwe Chiwamba. Thank you.
Evening, Chair. My name is Lawrence Chakakala Chazia, Lilongwe Chirobwe constituency.
Chair, I'm Katunga Million, MP Palombe Machemba. Thank you, Chair.
My name is Best Ben Awali, Member of Parliament for Zomba City North.
Chair, my name is Gerard Dasaugadala, representing the people of Blantyre Central constituency. Thank you and good evening, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ivoa Kaunda, MP for Ngatabe Central. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Amina Gajia, representing Zomba Sondoli. Thank you.
Good evening, through you, Chair. My name is Susan Dossi, Member of Parliament for Chikwawa West. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Noel Olipipa, Member of Parliament for Blantyre City, Chilomoni, Kabula, and Nancholi constituency.
Through you, Honorable Chairperson, I'm Nelly Nkata, Clerk to the committee.
Through Honorable Chairperson, my name is Frederick Amani, Chief Clerk Assistant, Committees.
Honorable Chairperson, good evening. My name is Sangwani Piri, Chief Economist. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I'm Judith Sikalo Kakalea, Parliament Secretariat. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson, Tile Likoma, Legal Services. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Chairperson. I'm Maura Fiona Matenje, Legal Services.
Through you, Chair, I'm Tulinje Molozi, Member of Parliament for Machinga Likwenu, and I'm the Vice Chair for this committee. Thank you.
Colleague from the board and honour members, my name is Stephen Baba Malondera Kansiamo. I'm an MP for Lilongwe Nyanja constituency, and I'm a chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. At this point, like I indicated, controlling officer, we have media in this room, so I would like to request media to introduce yourself. I see the numbers have drastically dropped. So those who are sleeping at the back, you can come if you're part of the media. Those who are seated in the dark, come and introduce yourselves so that people get to see and know you. Can you use this mic, please?
Through Chair, this is Miri Mojitsuro from Nation Publications Limited.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Jisomo Jingwaru from Zodiac.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Che Kachipeta from Link FM.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Comfort Blankete from Chisomo Radio Station.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Empelosuya from Angaliba TV and FM.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Breton Chonga from Radio Islam.
Thank you so much. Controlling officer, we will hand over to you. You introduce yourself. But there are two things that you need to take into account. When making the introduction, you can state your name, your position, then you proceed to indicate whether you're coming from teachers union and whatnot, so that people get to know you from where you're coming. Are you coming from the employer? All those things. So anyone doing introductions, kindly do that so that we get to know you from the institution you're coming from. I understand that you've prepared a PowerPoint presentation. Like I indicated, we'll give you space after the introductions and the oath has been taken, then you do as per your request. Controlling officer, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My name is Chizaso Eric Nyirongo. I'm the chairman of the Public Service Pension Trust Fund. I'll now invite my colleagues to make their self-introductions. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Committee members, my name is Precious Chimbamba. I am the Vice Chairperson for the fund, and I represent the employee side, specifically the Civil Service Trade Union. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Chairperson. I am Idrissa Mwale. I represent I'm the trustee in the fund from the employer side. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and the committee. My name is Yona Piri, trustee for the fund, coming from the Civil Service Trade Union. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and all honorable members. I'm Irene Chikaba. I'm a trustee and coming from the employer side. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and the Honorable Committee. My name is Maxwell Tsitsi. I represent the employer on the board. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and honorable members of the committee. My name is Richard Zimba, trustee of the fund, representing the employees coming from the Civil Service Trade Union. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and the Honorable Committee. I am Blasio Mpepo. I'm coming from Civil Service Trade Union. I'm a trustee representing the employees.
Well, good evening, Honorable Chair and the rest of the honorable members. My name is Bernard Nyondo. I'm a trustee for Public Service Pension Trust Fund, representing employees, Teachers Union of Malawi. Thank you, Chair.
Lastly, good evening, Chair and all members.
My name is Arthur Manyunya. I'm a trustee in this third cohort. I represent the employer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this point, allow me to ask Secretariat to administer an oath. Secretariat, make sure you administer an oath to everyone. Over to you, Secretariat.
Honorable Chair, before we do the administration of oaths, I just wanted to bring to your attention that the board is not complete because we have 2 members who are not present. These are Ms. Chikondi Piri, who is a trustee representing the employer, and we have Mrs. Mwai Meki, Mrs. Mwai Ngombe Meki, who is a trustee representing the employees. So that would be the full membership of the board as it stands now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Controlling Officer. That shall be recorded accordingly. So many thanks for such an update. Secretary, kindly proceed.
I, Chizaso Eric Nyirongo, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Precious Chimbamba, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Idrissa Mwale, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Yona Pili, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Irene Chikapa, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Maxwell Tsitsi, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Richard Zimba, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Brazilian people, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the whole truth. So help me God.
I, Bernard Nyondo, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Arthur Manyunya, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you so much, Secretariat, for administering the oath. Controlling Officer, we'll begin by giving you time to make your presentation. Are you going to go straight into beaming your presentation, or how do you want us to proceed? On a serious note, I want you to feel free. This is your parliament. You're free to respond to any question. The question that you feel they're not part of or they will not add to the submission, would like to ask you even not to attend. It's within your rights. All we need to do is to make sure that you get to the bottom of what actually happened. But before you start your presentation, I would like to give you comfort that all the members seated in this room are seated in this room because they are performing an oversight role. Now, this oversight role is reflected in the Constitution, and all these members took an oath of office and an oath of allegiance to this country. So out of the same, they are here just to discharge their duties, and when you're in Parliament, you are assigned to different committees. Now, they were assigned to this committee, Public Accounts, and the Public Accounts has several powers, and in pursuant to Standing Order 151, or the Public Accounts Committee, like any other committees of the House, Public Accounts Committee has several powers, and I'll just read to Controlling Officer. 1, to summon or subpoena any person to attend and give evidence before a committee at a stated time and place. In this case, you were given a letter, the communication got to you, stating that you're supposed to appear before Parliament. Like I indicated earlier on, my apologies and the apologies from the committee because we were extremely overwhelmed with the other stakeholders who appeared before you. You are the third one. So you're here under such powers. And the other one, for the sake of this engagement tonight, to require any person to disclose and produce to the committee any papers and records in that person's control, possession, custody, relevant to the committee's proceedings. I want to put on record that we have other documents which we've solicited from elsewhere, including recordings, videos, audios we have in our possession as Parliament. And as you do your submissions, I just wanted to put that on record, and everything that we're gathering shall form part of the report that we're going to present in Parliament. Controlling Officer, you may proceed to guide whether you're going straight into beaming your presentation, or you can guide. Controlling Officer.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My presentation on behalf of this board will be a hybrid because there will be matters which will be beamed and there will be others that I'll be speaking to. And then I'll also be making reference to a number of documents which I have with me here. Because I do not have the luxury of space, I may take a bit of time to find amongst my documents that which I would want to refer to at a given time. I hope the committee shall oblige me to tell our story as we wish to.
Controlling Officer, you're free, but I hope as an intellectual, you're going to give a synopsis of whatever you want to present, without undermining your case. So we don't have all the time because what we're doing, we've been engaging. So would like to pray that you be considerate to your members, that as you're doing your submission, you also take into account the time factor. Because they have been sitting in this room since 8 a.m. So as a human being, I just wanted to bring that into perspective so that you can be humane enough, because I know lawyers are like politicians. So you may proceed, controlling officer.
Before I go into the presentation, let me express our gratitude as the Public Service Pension Trust Fund for giving us this opportunity to present our side of the story. Except for a very, very, very few occasions, the fund has not spoken on this matter, and that this platform has been granted for us to tell our story. We are truly grateful. We would like to communicate our positions, the facts that are involved, and the perspectives that we have regarding the voluminous information that is in the public media regarding this transaction. And of course, being a member organization, we are confident that this platform is not only speaking to the Public Accounts Committee, but also the members of the Public Service Pension Trust Fund whom you represent. So we trust that through this interaction, we are going to explain to the committee and our members and the nation at large the matters that involve this particular transaction, the way the board of this particular fund sees it. Through your invitation, which the fund received requesting us to appear before you, you raised 5 areas. The first one being the circumstances and decision-making process that led to the acquisition. And to that, I will, on behalf of the board, detail the matters from the moment that the board first met, the information shared and exchanged with the Secretariat, and the steps that were taken by the board. And the second matter was whether the board proceeded notwithstanding any advice, caution, or directives issued by the Registrar of Financial Institutions, and the justification for such action. We'll detail the process and the engagement we've had with the RFI. And of course, you also requested that we speak to the valuation processes undertaken, including the initial price considerations, the basis for any subsequent adjustment, and the justification for acquiring the asset at a higher price. We'll also speak to that. And of course, you also want to know the due diligence, the legal, financial, and regulatory assessments relied upon prior to concluding the transactions, which we will also address, and the measures, finally, that we took to ensure compliance with applicable laws, governance standards, and the safeguarding of the contributors' funds. These are the areas that you addressed, and for us, while these are the matters which you brought to our attention, we'll be dealing with this matter by also looking at the chronology of events, and we'll start from 2022 because that's when our investment strategy came into place that identified the hospitality sector as one of the key areas where we would actually put the investment for our members. At this point, allow me to transition to the presentation so that I can address a few foundational matters that will be relevant for purposes of understanding where we're actually coming from. I'll be quick because I believe that this information is also something which has already been shared before. I would trust that many people that you have actually talked to have addressed the fact that the fund commenced in earnest on 1st July 2017 under a trust deed that was sponsored by the government of the Republic. And the objective of the fund was to provide retirement or pension and other benefits to the members or the members' beneficiaries. The fund is governed largely by 3 key instruments. This would be the trust deed, the fund rules, and the Pension Act 2023. But because a pension fund is also a financial institution, we are also governed by the Financial Services Act. And since we fall under the Financial Services Act, it means we also fall under the regulation of the Registrar of Financial Institutions. As you are aware, there are 12 trustees, 6 appointed by the employer, and 6 are nominated by employees through the unions, and they are all formally appointed by the employer, since all trustees are civil servants employed in the government in accordance with the trust deed. The current cohort of trustees were appointed in phases. The first half was appointed earlier in 2025, around January, February, and the remainder were licensed in June 2025. The work of the fund commenced in earnest in September, and of course, the fund also has 3 investment managers, a custodian, an actuary, an administrator, and many other service providers. As of 31st December 2025, the assets of the fund were standing at 1.1 trillion. I think for the committee to also understand how we're doing with this 1.1 trillion, this is the fund's asset allocation in terms of percentages as of December. You'll see that equities constitute the largest portion at 66%. We also have private equity at 2%, properties at 6%. In terms of offshore investments, we are at 0%, and it's an area we're looking into investing. We have got other assets which are just generally classified as other assets at 1%. Government securities are standing at 16%. We have cash, which in December we had 1%. Fixed deposits were standing at 7%. And of course, we also invested in corporate bonds, which is standing at 1%. Now, before I continue on this particular presentation, let me go back to my notes and indicate that among other instruments that the fund uses, it's an investment strategy which we developed in 2022 and this was under the previous cohorts. And we, through that investment strategy, identified the hospitality sector as one of the areas where we could make investments for the members and their beneficiaries. And we have 3 fund managers. I'm sure this has been communicated to you. We have got Old Mutual Investment Group, NICO Asset Managers, and Continental Asset Management. Now, when we look at the Amaryllis transaction, you will find that the engagements started somewhere around 2023. This is because our investment strategy had actually delegated to our fund managers the investments into the hospitality sector by assigning NICO Asset Managers the responsibility to acquire Amaryllis Hotel. And we also assigned Continental Asset Management to acquire then Sigelege Boutique Hotel. And of course, Old Mutual Investment Group was assigned the task of building the Lifestyle Hotel in Blantyre. These decisions having been made, they were now pursuits by our investment managers and the NICO asset managers, who I will possibly now concentrate on because they were now managing this particular investment, did engage with the sellers of this particular asset. The manner of commencement comes from what they call transaction advisors, and this is Cedar Capital Limited, that were actually engaged by NICO Asset, by the seller to find a buyer. And they did approach, they got in touch with NICO Asset Managers to actually see if the opportunity to invest by acquiring Amaryllis Hotel could be realized. NICO was formally appointed by the fund, and because NICO now was the one that was leading this particular process, it had the responsibility of being the eyes and ears of the fund to make sure that the fund is getting a good investment. So NICO did engage three institutions, I should say, because there was the Garden City Valuers, there was Knight Frank, and of course there was FDH Bank that were hired to do the valuations. I will refer to the first assignment because it seems this was before our cohort came into being. So we are looking at the reports that were prepared prior to our commencement of work. And of course, the reports we'll start with will be the one coming from FDH Bank. I'm sure this report has been submitted to the committee. It is the one that is written Amaryllis Hotel Business Evaluation. You will also note that the interest of the fund was not to buy a building. It was to acquire a hotel which included the business of the hotel and the structure.
Mulanje Southeast, what is out of order?
Chairperson, for the sake of your honorable committee, that they follow the presentation, would the controlling officer have somebody to transition the presentation so that we follow what he is talking about? Thank you, Chairperson.
Controlling officer?
Honorable Chair, I did indicate that I've got notes which I've prepared, which are not part of the presentation, and I'll revert to the presentation when I have to now go through it. So that's why I'm comfortable at the slide where we are, and when I have to speak to the slide, I'll do that before we transition to the next slide. But as of now, I'm actually speaking to the notes which we have, and a final report to the committee is going to be prepared, which is going to be an integrated report regarding our presentation. Thank you, Chair.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So we've got the business valuation that was done by FDH Bank under the instructions of NICO Asset Management that I'll possibly be referring to as NAM, and the report was of 30th June 2023. As you can see, this particular report does detail the fact that, one, it's a business evaluation, and that the scope of work that was carried out as of 30 June was defined in the report and reads as follows. Under page 2, it says, we carried out evaluation of Amaryllis as at 30 June 2023. In carrying out our work, we have relied on information provided by Amaryllis advisor, as well as external analyst reports, economic reports, and other market data. The scope of the work included, but was not limited to, the following: understanding the business of Amaryllis, the economic environment, the hospitality sector, and the competitive landscape; reviewing and analyzing historical performance of the position of Amaryllis since inception; analyzing the forecast provided by management in respect of the expected performance and making reasonable adjustments where necessary, using our judgment and experience to determine the preferred valuation methodology; reviewing market valuations and pricing multiples of companies with similar business operations, computing the cost of equity for the valuation of Amaryllis, determining the fair value of the ordinary shares on the assumption of an unlevered business. This is the assignment that was undertaken by FDH Bank. The valuation of the asset itself is what I've said was done by proper property valuers that were Knight Frank and Garden City. So when the bank was doing this assessment, they were looking at the business and whether it was a viable investment for the fund. You will note that according to this particular report, in terms of the value of the asset, which I'll just speak to quickly, we're also referring to the reports that Garden City and Knight Frank had produced, which had given the values of 48 billion and 50 billion for the asset itself. In their report, they also recognize that there was another valuation which had been done in 2021, which had placed the value of the asset at 24.5 billion. So you will notice that within 2 years, the value of the asset had actually doubled from 24.5 billion to 50 billion. A structural integrity report by W. Chirwa engineers was also submitted, and it was also under the same instruction of NICO asset managers. The scope of work, as I've indicated, was the one where they were just reviewing documentation to find out what the value of the business is. And in their conclusion, according to this report, FTH Bank found that the value of the business was hovering between 26 billion and 35 billion, and that the valuation point estimate of 30 billion was the average of the approaches that they had actually used. So which means that having valued the business at 30 billion and the asset which was standing at 50 billion, and also looking at the fact that the valuers like Knight Frank, who had pegged the value of the asset at 50 billion and the replacement cost at 87 billion, the value of the asset was hovering around 80 billion as of 2023. Then let me also point out that these figures that were presented as the value of the business between 26 and 35 billion were discounted values of the asset itself at 50 billion. So these were discounted at 40%, and that is why the value was resting at 30 billion as a percentage of 50 billion that had actually, which was the value of the asset itself. These values notwithstanding, they were the factors that were driving the negotiations that were actually being done between the seller and the buyer, of course, through NICO Asset Management. So when the negotiations were done, a price of 47 billion, which was not a representative of the values of either the asset or the business, you find that they had agreed that 47 billion would be the price. Of course, there were requests for adjustments here and there, but the parties agreed to proceed at this particular value. In terms of whether this was a viable investment, in terms of whether it was going to be making profits, we can go to page 21 of the report, which at this particular stage was actually talking about revenue, and the gross profit at this particular point in time had increased to 1.5 billion in 2022, resulting in an improved gross margin of 65.5% from 60.4% earlier. The improvement in gross profit margins is by virtue of improved sales attributed to the increase in the level of business activity and improvement in cost of sales. So at this particular time, these valuers had found that the trajectory for gross profits for this particular enterprise were actually on the rise. But this didn't when these figures came out, the parties had actually negotiated. An offer was actually made by the fund through NAM, and the acceptance was done by the seller that they would proceed. And of course, the arrangement was that this was going to constitute subscription and asset sale, which means that there were assets that would be transferred from the seller to the buyer. And of course, there was a subscription to be made, which was the acquisition of equity by the buyer. So this was largely the transactions in 2023. Before the agreement was actually signed, NICO decided to withdraw from the transaction and advise the fund accordingly. And this correspondence is coming to the fund in February because they had cited several reasons why they could not proceed. One of which was the lack of due diligence, which was not undertaken in this particular process, and they said they could not continue with this transaction on that account. It is very important to note at this particular stage that these NICO asset managers were actually the investment managers for the fund. And who other than them was supposed to do the due diligence? So NICO Asset Management walked out at a point where the steps which had been taken had costed the fund, and for that particular reason, there was engagement between the fund after withdrawing, leading to NICO reimbursing the costs that had been incurred by the fund, and of course also facing a penalty which they still answer to this date as follows. The other than just reimbursing the costs of the fund in terms of what the fund had actually expended, the fund also reduced the portfolio payments from 20% to 1%, and that is the payment which the penalty which NICO Asset Management continues to face up to this date. But alongside this particular exercise, it is also very important to note as to why, what was actually happening behind the scenes leading to the withdrawal. The committee is aware that there is an investment in Lilongwe, which is done by NICO as a group, where they are constructing a hotel at Lilongwe Golf Club. In that particular enterprise, the hotel had indicated that while they were also investment managers for the fund, they would not allow any other contributor to that particular project to own more than 15% in a similar enterprise elsewhere, which was a result of their interest in ensuring that the resources of the fund would also be directed towards this particular project. There was a clause in that agreement which had been signed by all the parties, and the fund protested, and for that reason, that also contributed towards the punishment that NICO faced with respect to this particular transaction. Moving on from January, February, when NICO withdrew from this particular transaction, you'll find that there was a meeting that took place by the board, the previous board, on 17 January. I think this meeting is a meeting which has not been properly documented because there were no minutes that were passed on to our committee to show that there was that decision that was actually made, and there was also a resolution that was purported to have been passed by the previous board that was not brought to the attention of our board. That meeting and that resolution seem to indicate that the board had actually withdrawn from this particular transaction.
Controlling officer, can you switch off your mic? Before you proceed, we had an engagement with the old board in this room, I see few colleagues who were in the OD board. Mr. Nyondo, I saw you in the morning. You appeared. Who else? And this last, Mr. Blasio. Mr. Manyonga.
I was not available.
Sorry, Mr. Manyonga. The last one. The last two, I saw them in the previous one. Controlling officer. I remember in the morning when they appeared with the old board, this issue took central stage. And I can ably recall that we had to confirm because we had issues around the same, where there was documents, it was not signed. On that material day, we made them, they were asked to confirm without being pushed. Mr. Nyondo, can you confirm what you said in this room in the morning?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I, Bernard Nyondo, indeed confirmed in the morning that on the day that is mentioned, 17th of January, we as a board, a resolution was made, and I did not approve on the Amaryllis transaction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Mr. Can you confirm? Are you the one who talked about school?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I said at that meeting I was not present, but I can confirm that all the members who were here confirmed that a resolution was made not to continue with the Amaryllis, and I think a subsequent resolution which in dispute is also present in the public domain. Thank you, Chair.
Controlling officer, I just wanted to refresh you on those things because you may not have had information, but I just wanted you to confirm because these two appeared in the morning and I was sitting where I'm sitting and I was able to recall. Like I've remembered that he had indicated that he did not attend that meeting because he was at school. But Mr. Nyondo in the morning confirmed. And all the members in the old board confirmed under oath. So I just wanted to indicate to you as you proceed to just take note of that. Kindly proceed, controlling officer. What is out of order, Chitipa Central?
Thank you, Chair. I want to put it on record that while I and Mr. Nyondo share the name, and maybe blood, we have never met before this unfortunate inquiry. So I am not conflicted in any way. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Member, I'll consider that as a lighter moment while you're trying to distance yourself. Obviously, I could have recognized you. You are not recognized in this room as Mr. Nyondo, but I understand you're a politician. The people in the village may understand it in a different way. But that's Chitipa Central Controlling Office, and we'll take it as such. You may proceed, Controlling Officer.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm raising this particular matter because of the interesting developments of November 2025, when, like I said, when we assumed our responsibilities as a board in September 2025, at no point were the minutes shared with us. Because as a current board, it was my expectation that proper governance would require that the minutes be brought to our attention so that we could adopt them as a record of the institution since they were not concluded by the earlier board. But efforts, I think, during the investigations that were done by the Anti-Corruption Bureau, there were efforts to bypass our board and sign minutes purporting them to have existed regularly before our board was constituted, when in effect those minutes had not been so signed. This was information that was brought to my attention as chairman, that there were those efforts that a different board of the same institution was sitting to create minutes and regularize them when they had actually not been done so. This, again, is a documentation which we're going to present to you and show that as of 25th or 26th of November 2025, the previous board was still transacting on the business of this particular institution without the knowledge of the current board. Moving on, after NICO exited this, after NAM exited this transaction, and the purported withdrawal and the board resolution, on 6 March, now coincidentally in my previous life as a director of legal services at OPC, I was tasked to attend a meeting in Mzuzu. This meeting was called by the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Ms. Colleen Zamba, and the invitation was extending to the Public Service Pension Trust Fund. I was present at that meeting. I would like to confirm that fact, and I would want to state what transpired at that particular meeting. When the meeting started, at that particular time, the president then was in Mzuzu. I think it was in March, and there was some flooding somewhere in the northern parts of Malawi. I think in Kota Kota, Dwangwa had lost bridges and all that. So during that particular time, I was called because I was responsible for legal services at OPC, and I was required to be present because the matter was pertaining to an issue to do with the law. Coincidentally, and unrelated to the meeting, there was also the chief of staff from State House who was there by reason that the president was also in the north. When the representatives of the fund arrived, and these were the chair of investments, who was Mr. Boyd Hamila, and the principal officer, Mr. George Jim King, the SPC made an inquiry as to what was happening at the fund. I would presume that being the trustee, Mr. Hamila gave a detail, I think largely by telling us what the fund does and everything else. Then after that presentation, they were asked what was happening with Amaryllis, to which the trustee did indicate a brief history of that particular transaction and where it had stored. After telling us the history, we were informed that at that particular time, as of 6th March 2024, the fund was in engagement with another fund manager who was supposed to take over the transaction. Having been told that there was a possibility of litigation, and that is why the SPC was concerned, I was asked to speak to the matter with respect to the law. And I did inquire from the trustee as to what was the history of the matter, which was the one that would likely lead to a threat of litigation. In March 2024, I had been practicing the profession of the law for 23 years. There was no way I was going to give legal advice on a story that I had heard. So what I prudently did was to request that if there was any documentation leading to that particular transaction, it be shared with me so that I can look at it, so that we take care of the exposure of government in the event that there was really a matter that could be litigated by the seller. I do recall at that particular meeting that I think principally those were the matters that were raised. And of course, after that, the question, the SPC did direct that the documentation which I was asking for should be brought to my attention. To date, that documentation has never been brought. And I also do recall that at that particular meeting, the last half of it, and this was a meeting which had started somewhere around 6 or 7 o'clock, that the principal officer did make requests to the SPC for a promotion. And he said he was going to do everything in his power to do the transaction, but he was asking that he should be promoted. That
controlling officer?
Yes.
Can you kindly retake that one?
I'm saying that when the principal officer made a request to the SPC that he had found this to be an opportunity to interact directly with SPC, he wanted to ask that he had been at his grade for a long time and he would want to be considered for a promotion. The SPC retorted that it is not his responsibility to be promoting officers and that the promotions are done by a different department responsible for human resources and the Civil Service Commission, depending on the grade that the person would be.
Mulanje Southeast.
Chairperson, your honorable committee is a committee of records. Do we have a record of the meeting? Because the purported person who is being claimed against is not in this room to protect themselves. Do we have a record that can be produced by the controlling officer to satisfy your honorable committee that the conversation he is purporting to have taken place in a meeting which he attended in Mzuzu is available? Thank you, Chairperson.
Salima Central, supplementary.
Chair, much as we appreciate the controlling officer has a very good memory when presenting issues, but he was summoned to present something for the whole board, and my expectation, we expected him to be giving us things that are well recorded from the PowerPoint or something that we can use as a reference. But what we are getting here, Chair, it could be somebody is speaking from his own understanding. Probably the board can be shocked here.
Controlling officer, the two issues, but on the last one, I want to give you all the benefit of doubt, because I presume you're building a case and give us conclusive evidence on all those things which were happening. So I'll give you time, just maybe as someone who has been in the practice for some time, to give it a thought in terms of compressing what you're presenting, because the honourable members would want to get into the substantive issues regarding the events surrounding the sale. So you can consider doing that, but you're giving us timelines. As you give us timelines, kindly make sure that there's conclusive evidence. You may recall that just now you voted the minutes for 17th January 2024 on the account that they were never signed. To that effect, you're supposed also to have proper documentation. So let's proceed that way, controlling officer.
Yes, as you have rightly put it, I think there's a case that I'm actually building regarding the decision of the previous board and what the current board did. At that particular moment, like I said, the request to actually give the detail regarding this was not given. The documentation was never given to my office to follow up. I did make requests for those documents. They were not given until such time that I think this matter kind of just like fizzled away. Fast forward, when we were now instituted as a board, one of the things which had arisen was that the board was pursuing a transaction which had actually been reversed by the previous board, to which we had not seen the minutes, nor adopted them, nor had we seen the resolutions until February 2026. We did try to trace the documentation regarding the thoughts of the previous board and their resolution not to proceed. But we did come across correspondence between Cedar Capital, who was the transaction arranger or the transaction advisor on behalf of the seller, writing Continental Asset Managers on 12 February, which is 2-3 weeks before this particular meeting in Mzuzu, where the OPC was actually requesting the fund to complete the transaction. Cedar Capital did write to Continental Asset Managers requesting Continental Asset Management Limited to take over and complete the transaction of acquiring 100% equity in Amaryllis Hotel by the PSPTF. This particular request did materialize and was communicated to that asset manager, and you note that for a board which had decided to give up this particular transaction based on the advice that they had gotten from their asset managers, NAM, there were subsequent activities that led to the report of May 2024 that was presented to the board. I think there's a demonstration that the continuity of the transaction was not at the instance of a board which commenced its business on 5 September 2025, but rather a continuation of efforts by the same cohort of trustees to continue with their particular transaction. You will also note that beyond that, there were subsequent actions that were taken by that particular board and exchanges that were being done by all parties.
Sir, can you switch off your mic? We invited you to handle issues of the new board. We deliberately decided as Parliament to give a slot to the old board. Fortunately, a few members who were in the old board are here. Then we gave a slot for the secretariat, and there was a slot for the new board, to which you are the chair. I would like to ask that documentary evidence regarding the old board we have, including audios, and even the board that you're sitting on, the decisions which you made. We also have some recordings as Parliament, and I'm speaking on authority that we have. So I would like to play that maybe if you can, let's get to your board, then we proceed. Don't drag the proceedings. Controlling Officer.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. But I am also hopeful that the committee will indulge this particular board to give you the full picture of this particular transaction, because the things which I'm speaking to now will have their own impact at a later stage when it comes to how the processes of the board were undertaken at a later stage. So it is not to drag the proceedings, but rather to make our perspective regarding this particular transaction so that you can now understand what decisions happened when the board came into effect.
That is in order. You may also fill in the gaps as you are presenting in terms of decisions which pension fund arrived at when there was no board. So since you're giving a background, in between, make sure you also handle issues that or decisions which were arrived at when there was no board.
Thank you, Chair. I am saying this because we was trying to trace the documentation regarding the interest of the fund, because this became material when the new board was considering that this would be a worthwhile investment. And one of the letters that we actually came across was a letter of 27 May 2024 from Continental Asset Management coming to the principal office of the fund. In that particular letter, the asset manager, CAM, refers to their letter of 18 May in relation to the fund's interest in a potential investment in Amaryllis Hotel. Following our review of the documentation submitted to us and further information received from the transaction arranger, Cedar Capital Limited, we submitted an analysis of the opportunity and a recommendation on the way forward. As for the timelines of the transaction, we anticipate that we'll be able to complete the transaction no later than 30 days from the date we receive final approval from the fund. This assumes that no anticipated challenges arise at any stage of the transaction. And once the transaction commences, we'll keep the fund updated on the progress. We'll communicate with the fund promptly if need arises to update these timelines.
Mulanje Southeast, what has gone out of order?
Chairperson, is there a particular reason why the controlling officer should drag the proceedings by reading a document that your able committee can easily go through and take up time when you have actually guided them accordingly?
Point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Mulanje Southeast, the controlling officer has time and again indicated that he's building a case. As a committee, we may, to a certain extent, be seen like we're trying to gag him. We haven't concluded anything. All we can ask of him is to expedite whatever he's doing as he's building his case. So I rule you out of order. There was a point of order from Lilongwe Chiwamba.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is just a request to the honorable members. If we can give a time for the control officer to defend himself, to explain. Mind you, this is a public inquiry. He's supposed to say whatever he's supposed to say. If we are not having time, let's adjourn to next day. But let's give him a time to explain, to defend himself. We are going to ask questions. He's supposed to explain fully. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Lilongwe Chiwamba. This is exactly what I had ruled on Mulanje Southeast, so that is given time to do that. It was just a request that if he can proceed in that manner. I see Lilongwe Chirobwe.
Yes, Chair. I would like to suggest that, as Honorable Lilongwe Chiwamba said, I don't agree with him. I think we have time. Even if it means 6 a.m., we'll be here. Let's be here to save the Malawians and get the bottom of this issue. No need for coming another day for this issue. Let's finish what we have started. Thank you.
I would like to sustain the point of order from Lilongwe Chirobwe. We have all the time. Honourable members, you've already been active and you've been available. You've been an amazing team. Let's keep pushing on this one. Controlling officer, your time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Like I said, the points that I wanted the committee to take home is that the whole evaluation that is being talked about is existing between 18 May and 27 May 2024, and that within 30 days, a fund manager is purporting that they can actually conclude this particular transaction. Moving on, there were a series of activities that happened as the term of the previous board had wound up in September of 2024, leading to the reconstitution of a new cohort in September 2025 when they effectively started their business. During that particular period, there were a number of letters that I will make reference to when it comes to our new board, because these were documents that we did not deal with. So now I'll take you back to the slides with respect to how the fund looked at this particular investment. So the fund was guided by a strategic, financial, and governance and regulatory basis that was supposed to lead the board into considering whether to proceed with this particular investment or not. And this stems from the way the business of the fund started in September 2025. When in September 2025, the board met the first time, it was for an orientation, and that orientation took place between 5th and 6th of September. During that particular process, most of the service providers of the fund came to make presentations to make the new board aware of the business of the fund. That having concluded with the election of the leadership of the board, it was incumbent upon me to ensure that we are brought up to date to the real status of events with respect to a fund which had been without a board for a year. And we, as a board, resolved that we would want to have an inception meeting with management to appreciate what had transpired for a year because there was no board. We wanted to know what was immediately required for the board to prioritize during that period, because we believed that the absence of a board for a period of a year was disadvantageous to our members. We had that particular meeting, and we as a board, we were not informed about the status of this particular transaction. As a result, we revised our calendar to make sure that the business of the board commences in earnest and commences quickly. And we now started inviting the committees to start meeting, and this was in the month of September. When the committees started, the investment committee, I think, was the first one to meet, and the other committees also followed suit in various orders of sequencing. The idea was that the committees would meet, and then that is what was going to inform the board. In the course of the business of the investment committee, which I will emphasize on because this particular committee is the one that was directly responsible for these acquisitions of investments. So during the investment committee, as they were detailing their work, what to invest in, what was the status of the investments, that is when they came across correspondence that would request the fund to give its position with respect to the investment in this particular hotel. So maybe at this point in time, let me just briefly request the chair of the investment committee to give us a small detail of what transpired in that particular month.
You may proceed. You may wish to remind the committee your name and proceed after doing so. You may also wish to retake the union or the ones you are representing.
Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable Chair, I'm Idrissa Mwale, the Investments Committee Chairperson. Indeed, I would like to confirm that at our meeting that was held in Salima, we came across some correspondences regarding the Amaryllis Hotel transaction.
Can you switch off your mic? Mr. Idrissa Mwale, you just said meeting held in Salima. Can you be specific? Because when you're done, this is a house of record. So 10, 15 years from now, people who will just be listening to the recordings, they may not understand. So be specific in terms of the dates. Over to you, Mr. Mwale.
Thank you, Chair. The meeting was held in September 2025. And among other deliberations, we looked at the communication that was in our possession regarding the transaction of the Amaryllis Hotel. At this meeting, there were two specific letters that were written, if I'm not mistaken, in March. 27th March and 23 March, I think, where the former, the principal officer was assuring Amaryllis Hotel that...
Switch off your mic. I see a hand from Chukwa West.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. You have just guided that he has to be mentioning the date, the month, and the year for our records, and he's still not doing that. So I just wanted maybe to make sure he does that.
Mr. Mwale, kindly get aligned and proceed as such. Over to you.
Chairperson, Honorable Chair, let me get it right. With the dates of the letters or the...
Anything that has to do with a date, anything, you need to put it on record. Even if it's a letter, whether it's a meeting, the date, the full details, date, month, and year, please.
May I request the Vice Chair to step in, I think, with this, because he was also a member of that particular committee.
Controlling officer, Mr. Idris Amale is the chairperson of the investment committee. So you want the vice chair to step in, the vice chair of the board to step in, when you had requested that the chair of investment has to take that one. Are you not comfortable with his competence?
I am fully comfortable with his competence, except that I think he would not recall the dates in order, because I think we're not minded as to the particularity of detail that would be required before this committee. So we
Chair, controlling officer, how can the vice chair of the committee who just attended have details? And you say the one who is the chairperson chairing that proceeding can't get the details. I want him, if he's not on toes, because you're generating a case, he's helping you to generate a case, and he has the authority, okay, as a chairperson of investment. Let him show, Mr. Male. When you went to Salima, was it you just went and back? Did you pocket allowances?
Chair, the meeting of the Investments Committee was held on 25 to 26th of September, 2025.
This is a basic, bro. Can we proceed? Let's be serious. If you're tired, maybe controlling officer, maybe your supporting artist or supporting colleagues are tired, and you can deposit all the documents that you have with Parliament, then we'll call you on any other day. Controlling officer?
Am I allowed to proceed?
You want us to proceed, or with the way we're doing with the investment chair?
No, I can always go back to my story, but I just thought that the relevant officer could actually just detail the issue of the letters.
He doesn't have the details. Which controlling officer proceed.
Okay, Chair, the investment committee met in September between 25th and 26th. During that particular period, they came across information that the seller was actually asking the committee in terms of the status of the transaction. When the letters came to the fund, those letters were not presented to either the chairman or the chair of the investment committee. When those letters were received by the fund, the principal officer replied to those letters without the knowledge of these particular officers. And once that response was done, the seller wrote, now copying both the chair and the chair of the investment committee. These letters, Honorable Chair, are letters that start from 25th, and the letter of 25th is the one which is addressed to the principal officer, and it says it's for the attention of the board chair of the fund and the chair of the investment committee. At this particular stage, the seller was following up on the commitments that had been made on 7 March and 18 March by the fund. When the principal officer was confronted with respect to this letter, he did indicate that he did not know anything about these letters, and he proceeded to say that these commitments were never made. Once the fund received those responses, they went along with that suggestion and believed that there was indeed no communication to this particular effect. When the response that the principal officer made in September, in a letter dated 29 September, acknowledging the status of the particular transaction, informing the seller of the board reconstitution and the current status, he did indicate that, however, we advise that the newly constituted board has not yet convened its inaugural meeting. As you will appreciate, the board's first meeting requires proper coordination, agenda preparation, and compliance with notice requirements to ensure that all members can participate effectively in their fiduciary capacity. They said the board secretariat was currently in the process of scheduling that meeting, and as such, when that time occurs, they'll be formally informed, and the matter will be tabled before the board for its consideration and direction. That is what the PO said, and that invited the seller to actually respond to that particular communication on 6 October. Now, what transpired on 6 October, Honorable Chair and members, is that the seller was now making an urgent request to complete the Amaryllis transaction. And this is what he said, having acknowledged the letter of 29 September, which I just read, which was responding to the letter of 25th September. The reply was considered materially inadequate because it did not provide the timetable, deliverables, accountability previously agreed after the 5 June meeting, and was reiterated in his own correspondence. The seller alleged that there was a binding contract between the fund and his company, which was concluded with the board's approval on 15 September, leading to an offer of 19 September, which was accepted on 27 September. He also alleged that 2 years had passed, and yet the fund had not fulfilled its contractual obligations, despite multiple undertakings that were done by his office. At this point in time, he did now attach the letters which were being denied by the principal officer to this letter, and this is what now came to the attention of the chairman of this particular committee and also his committee regarding what had been transpiring in the period that there was no board. But if you look at these letters, the 2 of them that were the commitments of March, were done during the time that there was a board. But when he was quizzed as a principal officer as to why he had denied writing these letters, he did not say anything other than produce a record that he was compelled to write these letters at a meeting that took place on 6 March in Mzuzu, which I had referred to earlier, that I attended. Like I said earlier, there was no record of that particular meeting, and that meeting is the allegation that there was a compulsion at that meeting is thwarted by the fact that on 12th February, which was prior to this meeting, there was already correspondence flying between a new fund manager and the transaction arranger, leading to the report that was produced in May 2024, showing that the board itself had actually departed from any alleged position to discontinue with this particular transaction in January 2024, whether or not there was a resolution, whether or not the resolution was properly signed or not, and indeed whether there were minutes that would support this particular transaction. Now that these letters were received by the committee, the matter, I think, invited now the board through the Committee of Investments to refer to these letters that were threatening litigation, because as the letter concludes, it refers to what had actually been done previously, and that they were now, as a seller, requesting the fund to convene a conclusive negotiation and signing meeting no later than Wednesday, 8 October 2025, to finalize pricing and execute the share purchase agreement. They did indicate they were fully available for this, and that they would be waiting for the fund to reply so that this can actually be concluded. The fund did, through its Committee of Investment, refer to this particular matter to the legal committee to consider indeed whether the threat for litigation was substantial, and the committee, through the legal services manager, produced a legal opinion that was later buttressed by another outsourced legal opinion, indicating that this the fund was in good standing in terms of the consequences of this particular transaction, and that they were likely to succeed. What information or what facts were presented to the lawyers that were providing the communication are at large, and those have not been made available to the board. I'm raising these matters, Honorable Chair, because once this transaction had actually happened, the first question that the board raised was, why was this particular transaction not raised during the inception meeting of 10 September to update the board on whatever commitments had actually been made? The board was of the view that the position of the principal officer was deceptive and dishonest, and as such, it actually repudiated him and then proceeded to start considering this particular matter. It also came...
Controlling officer, can you switch off the mic? You requested in the beginning that you're going to go hybrid, where you're going to beam and to Are you just having the notes, or is there a presentation? Did you submit? Because normally, traditionally, you need to submit so that we can follow, apart from just listening. So I just wanted to find out from your controlling officer.
Honorable Chair, the reason that we did not make one complete presentation was that information and documentation was still coming to the fund as we were approaching the date when we were supposed to come here. So that was making it difficult as our story kept on changing, and we needed to actually make sure that once we speak to the facts that we know as a fund, we would now submit a full report of what we are actually doing. So what we are actually proceeding with now is taking the committee through the chronology of events that led to the execution of this particular agreement and where the fund stands with this particular transaction to date.
Yeah, please proceed.
So during the period that these letters came to bear, the fund was made aware that there was continued engagement with the seller in May 2025, where letters were being written, and of particular importance was the letter of 19 June. Before the board started its work, I mean the current board, that there was a letter to Nico Asset Managers where there was an appointment of Nico Asset Managers as fund managers. Again, this was not a decision which should have actually skipped being brought to the attention of the new board. And in that letter, as if purporting to exercise the full powers of the board, the principal officer made reference to the earlier engagement of NAM in relation to the proposed acquisition of the equity in Amaryllis Hotel and NAM's role as a fund manager to the fund. The fund acknowledges and appreciates the professional diligence demonstrated by NICO during the initial phases of the transaction. As you are aware, Yusuf Investment Limited recently requested urgent clarity on the status and finalization of the transaction. In this context, the fund requested NICO to proceed and conclude its advisory work on the transaction. So at this particular stage, with this level of commitment, it was surprising to the new board, especially the investment committee, that they were not brought to their attention that there was even a new fund manager that had been appointed to actually conclude this particular transaction. This, as it was happening in June 2025, we will be submitting this letter again to the committee as part of our documentary evidence regarding the what was actually happening. So, besides this, we also became aware that this letter that was appointing Nico Asset Managers was following a meeting that was actually undertaken on 5th June with the seller, with the lenders of the seller, which I think as a board, we wondered as to what business there was between the fund and the seller to actually bring in the lenders of the seller so that they are part of the acquisition of this particular property. The commitments that had been made, the fact that the lender was given assurance as demonstrated in the letters of 7 March and 18 March, which were allegedly written under compulsion but had been written in pursuit of the engagement of a new fund manager to undertake this particular transaction. The board was actually put in a position where it needed to consider seriously whether indeed the threat of litigation was going to materialize or not. And it is for this reason that when the board met on 25th October, it decided to consider this matter and look into whether indeed the board would find this particular transaction worthwhile or not. A lot of information had not been brought to the attention of the board. A lot of allegations had been made at this particular time, and it was actually the board which was put in a very difficult position because in the absence of documents supporting the trail that had actually occurred before the board came into place, it would be at odds to make a decision as to which direction to go. Now, In the days before the meeting of the board that happened on 25th October, starting from 24th and concluding on 25th October. On 24th, I think it was a Friday, and then 25th was actually a Saturday. On 7th October, I'm sure that most of you are aware that there was a directive given by government to dissolve all boards. This particular directive was issued, and the legal services manager of the fund did communicate to all trustees that the fund was not affected by this particular dissolution. The fund continued with its business as the various committees were meeting, and we had actually selected 23rd and 24th of October to be the dates when we would actually have our board meeting. In the course of time, as the board was undertaking its business, the principal officer, I think it was on 20th of October, communicated to the board that the board should not continue with its business, which means that the meeting that had been slated for 23rd and 24th October was not going to proceed. That having happened, the board was in limbo as to how to proceed. And then I, as chairman, sought clarity from the chief secretary as to whether indeed the letter affected the board. The chief secretary responded and indicated that the board of the fund was not constituted like the other parastatals, and as such, it was going to continue its business. When the day of the meeting came on 23rd October, we could not proceed because that was the date when the clarity was sought and given. In my capacity as chairman, who is authorized by the deed to call or cancel meetings and not the principal officer, let me make it also very clear at this particular stage that I'll be referring to our officers, to our controlling officers, as principal officer and acting principal officer. So whenever I make any reference to the principal officer, I'm talking about Mr. George Jim, who was suspended by the board on 25th October. So when the board eventually, when the guidance was sought and given by the chief secretary, I decided to inform all the trustees that the board was going to continue meeting as scheduled, and that no other officer was going to communicate regarding whether the board would meet or not. When we went to meet, now this will be on 24th, which was supposed to be the second and last day of our meeting, the board could not form its quorum. And why did the board fail to form its quorum? The quorum being in a board of 12 members, we're supposed to form a quorum by having 4 members of each side, the employer and employee side, being present to form the quorum and have the meeting commence. In that particular morning, the principal officer came to the meeting, although he had indicated that he had been in Blantyre, but he did come to the meeting, but he came to the meeting slightly late. As we were waiting for the quorum to form, I received a letter from the Secretary of the Treasury, who is a representative of the employer, that only half the board had been dissolved. As a chair of the fund, and having received this communication, it came to my mind that I think we needed to wind up the business of the board. But then I thought that it was prudent that we give a chance to every person who had become a member of the board to actually come. As I was waiting for the quorum to form, we waited on 24th October for a very long time, until in the afternoon of the same date, I was called again by the Secretary of the Treasury representing the employer to ask if I could, if I had updated the rest of the trustees regarding this. I did indicate that I had not brought the contents of the letter to the attention of anyone who was present at that meeting, And the Secretary of the Treasury did indicate to me that the board had not been dissolved, but he had been misled by the principal officer because it was not in the nature of the employer to dissolve only half a board. And he did advise in his communication that the board had full constitution and powers to continue its business. This was on 24th October in the afternoon. At this particular moment, the letter was withdrawn and returned, but the principal officer himself had actually distributed it to all trustees, rendering the withdrawal of the letter inconsequential. Once that was done, I called for all members to come and attend. And what transpired at this particular stage was that since the board is constituted of half members coming from the employees, half members coming from the employers, the trustees, some trustees did indicate that they had been called by the principal officer being told that the board would be dissolved and they had no business being present. And that was most apparent on the side of the employee trustees. Once I received the letter that withdrew the earlier letter on 24th October, I did call for a meeting in the evening at 6 o'clock. And surprisingly, the attendance was complete, full attendance of all the members of the board. And we started now setting out the agenda, knowing that we had actually lost a day. Remember that at this particular stage, as a board, we are being mindful of the fact that we have stayed for a whole year without a board, and that there were facts which were emerging which had been kept away from our attention and knowledge, and as such, we needed to get back to business and start doing our discharging our responsibilities as a board. On 25th October, we continued with the business, having set out the agenda, except that at this particular meeting, there was a variation of the business that we were supposed to undertake, because trustees were wondering as to what had actually happened, where a board was dissolved. We had been told that nothing would be affected, and suddenly there was a change and there was a letter that was given to us and shared by the principal officer. When the board sought to understand this matter, the principal officer did indicate that the board was supposed to be the board was not supposed to be proceeding, but again, in light of the developments of later that day, everybody managed to attend, including the principal officer the following day, and we had a full meeting. It was as a consequence of the inquiry that the board was making as to what was happening to the constitution and reconstitution of the board, that the board opted to have an in-camera meeting where they would discuss the developments leading up to that day and what was actually transpiring. The board had, before the in-camera meeting, taken the time to actually assess whether indeed what was present before it and the letters and the engagement by the seller regarding this particular transaction was coming in and whether it was going to be a prudent investment. The board at that particular meeting did resolve that it was a worthwhile investment and it was worth pursuing, but there was need for discharging some level of prudence in actually making out a business case. The board was now made aware that there were valuations which had actually happened before, and that those would actually, while those would guide the board to make a decision, there was need for injection of new thinking, new information regarding the present values of this particular transaction, so that the board could ably negotiate this particular transaction. I don't know whether it's time to ask for a break, Honorable Chair.
Switch off. We'll give you 5 minutes, please. Honourable members, the controlling officer has requested for a break. I think it is fit and proper to do that because we are all human beings. Honourable members, I'm suspending the proceedings for 5 minutes. We'll convene after 5 minutes.
Usaiwala kupanga subscribe ku channel ya AMTV Malawi.